Good morning, members, and welcome to the 13th meeting in 2013 of the SPPA Committee. May I remind members to turn their mobile phones off. I've received apologies from Dave Thompson, Helen Eadie, Richard Lyle and Cameron Buchanan. As neither the convener nor the deputy convener is present today, I am chairing this part of the meeting as the longest-serving member of the committee. Under Rule 12.1 of Standing Orders requires that the committee must choose a temporary convener for this meeting. So, therefore, can I seek a nomination for chairing this meeting? I'm happy to nominate Fiona MacLeod. Thank you very much, Margaret. And can I seek the committee's agreement that Fiona MacLeod, myself, is appointed as temporary convener for this meeting? Thank you. Thank you. Agenda 1, Declaration of Interests. Item 1 in today's agenda is to enable Jackson Carlaw MSP, who is here as substitute for Cameron Buchanan, to declare any relevant interests.
Would that I had, convener, but I refer members simply to my declaration already made.
Thank you very much, Jackson. So can I welcome Jackson Carlaw to the meeting? And excuse me just one moment. Where am I now? Okay. Thank you very much. Item 2 is for the committee to decide whether to take item 6 in private, which is to consider the provision of services to cross-party groups. Is the committee content that we take that item in private? Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is for the committee to take evidence from George Adam, MSP, on the proposed cross-party group on multiple sclerosis. I would like to open the questioning by asking George, welcoming to the committee at the other end of the table, to tell us a bit more about your proposed cross-party group on MS.
Yes, well, basically, earlier on this year we had a very successful event in the Parliament for MS Awareness Week, and part of that was the MS Society wanting to connect with the Parliament and actually inform everyone that there is 10,500 people in Scotland who suffer from MS. Suffer's not a word they like to use, but my wife obviously has MS, and there's nothing worse than when you see someone you love actually having the condition, and it's quite difficult. So yes, I am emotionally compromised when it comes to this issue in itself, but I was quite keen, along with the MS Society, to build on some of the work they'd done with the report that they published in MS Awareness Week, which was effectively saying there's a lot of things that need to be done for people who have MS in Scotland and throughout the UK. But the whole idea was to work within the system and work along with the MSPs, the government and everyone else to say how can we actually fix things, instead of before, since 1999 the MS Society weren't keen to have a cross-party group in MS. I don't know why. I always thought it was probably the best way forward, but there has been quite a change in staff there, and they're really keen to be involved in this now, and I think it's all about making sure that we can have it in such a way where it's directed towards ensuring that we can make things better for people who are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Thank you very much, George. That's very comprehensive, and we all do appreciate your personal involvement in this. Can I then invite questions from members to George on his application? Are there any questions from members? Jackson?
George, good morning.
Jackson.
As a health spokesman wearing another hat, I'm conscious that there is within the Parliament a proliferation of cross-party groups on almost each and any condition that potentially exists. And I wonder, whilst I have a lot of sympathy and indeed may very well support the application that you're making, if you could just tell me how currently would the interests of MS sufferers or those with an interest in promoting better understanding of that condition do so through the current cross-party group structure? Is there one that they would feel a natural affiliation to do that with? And what would you hope in particular that if such a group were to exist separately, on the basis that you feel maybe that isn't the case, you would hope to see this group achieve?
No, I understand and appreciate the question, Jackson, because having sat in this committee as well, I'm aware there is quite a few groups out there. But I think on issues like the MS, multiple sclerosis in itself, is it's not just a different condition for individuals that have it, it's also individual to each individual. So it's there's so many different things involved with everybody's different who has multiple sclerosis. So it'd be quite difficult to be a lone voice in one of the other health cross-party groups. One of the things I'm really passionate about is to ensure that we can take the work that they did from the report that they submitted to this Parliament earlier in the year. And since I've been here, I've had a MS Awareness Week debate every single year. Now, I don't want to be saying the same old things and the same complaints time after time. I would like to actually use that debate, if the whips and the parliamentary body allow me to have the debate next year, to say the state of multiple sclerosis in Scotland and how we've moved things forward. And I think the CPG is critical to making sure we do that, because I'm wanting to, as chair, and I've discussed this with my other colleagues, MSPs in the group as well, I want to make sure that we're focused on an agenda where we can actually say, you know, there is something we're going to achieve this year to make sure, yes, it might be chipping away and making things slightly better. We can't have a magic wand and do things overnight, but it's about working constructively and focused on and making sure that we do have an outcome at the end of each year. And I would like every year to make sure that we have an agenda and a focus for how we're going to make things different. And I think we've got a couple of members in the MSPs whose members of their family have multiple sclerosis as well, and that does help because it ensures that we're actually just focused on getting the best outcome we possibly can.
Well, and I think, Convener, actually listening to the response that you give, that one of the distinctions might be your own personal passion and commitment to the group. I mean, undoubtedly, I know that there are some cross-party groups where MSPs have agreed to host or to facilitate a group on behalf of people who have an interest in the subject, as opposed to, I think, being driven with a very personal determination to see progress in the group too. So I think that may also be a unique aspect of the group that you're proposing.
And also, my wife Stacey is a very strong-willed individual.
Are there any other questions for George? Margaret.
Morning, George. Really on the financial benefits, I mean, I note that within the paper that there's a limit of £500 for CPGs. Or officers can correct me if that's right. And you're saying that you will have benefits of 1,000 to 1,500
yes.
per year. Is that within the limits, or how is that addressed within the cross-party groups?
Yes, it's what we ask under the financial benefits section is anything more than £500 per annum to be declared.
Oh, right.
A single source, is it not? Sorry.
Value either singly or cumulatively of more than £500.
Just to explain the costs, because I'm aware that
the question comes up on that.
Yes, yeah. The question comes up, and the whole idea of the Secretariat is the MS Society are going to provide that, and they are really serious about ensuring that they can do this, and they've taken into account the cost of the members of staff when the work that they will actually be doing over that period to the work within the CPG. So I think that's the reason why I told them we need a realistic figure, and it has to be, obviously having been a member of the committee as well, it has to be something of value that we'll be doing. So they took that very seriously when they went away to get the figures.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members? No. Can I thank George for his passionate evidence?
Thank you.
But also thank you for the very, complete form that we've received. It's very important for us to be able to make our decisions based on that. So the committee will now, on agenda item 4, move to discuss the evidence heard from George Adam on the proposed cross-party group in MS. I can invite George to join us back at the committee, or if you wish to leave while we discuss. Yep. Thank you. George has chosen to leave us while we discuss the application. So can I invite comments from members on the application for the cross-party group on MS? Colin.
I think it's the thing that springs through isn't just about the complete report or form that was filled in and information asked for, but I think there's a very, very clear commitment there on behalf of many of the MSPs who really want this to work, and I think on that basis I'd be quite happy to support the application.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Can I then move to ask, do members agree to accord recognition to the proposed cross-party group on MS?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Now, is this moving into...
On to the guidance, which isn't to the public.
Are we still...
It's the same thing.
Agenda item 5 is for the committee to agree guidance for cross-party groups on the completion of annual return forms, which we have in our papers. May I invite comments from members on this paper? You will, of course, know that the convener has comments, but I will keep mine till the end. Is everybody do we want to go through it page by page? Would that be helpful? And if there's any comment on each page. This is guidance for the completion of the annual return form, which we've just... This is the second year of the annual return form, am I correct? Yes. Part of the committee's work over the last couple of years has been to be much more formal about cross-party groups. And so we just wanted to go back over the form to ensure that everybody was understanding, and this, as a result, is guidance in some of the areas that we weren't getting consistent information back. So, will I take us through page by page? Page 1, are there any comments on page 1? Page 2. If we look halfway down under Annex A, in the bold type, the following 3 sections, there's a typo error, is that what I'm trying to say? Yeah. If you look towards the end of the paragraph, since the previous annual return form was submitted, it should be by, not of, the group. Does anybody get anything else on page 2? Page 3. And page 4. I'm afraid I have one on page 4. The second paragraph. If you look at the way that it ends, it's time they spend working for the group and the hourly rate they are normally paid. I would like to consider changing that to would normally charge. Because if you remember when Richard Baker came to give evidence, I think it was in the cross-party group in France, he questioned us when we talked about that, about how that would reveal people's salaries. And perhaps that was, and it's certainly not the purpose of this. So I wondered if a wording something like would normally charge for a service like that, would that work? Would the committee agree?
Yes, that's sensible.
Thank you.
Can I just
yep.
Say this for the fact that I convene the aviation group. Because obviously Edinburgh Airport's people do our secretariat, well, stuff that isn't helped along with my staff, you know, and it's not the sort of thing I could imagine a company like Edinburgh Airport actually charging
someone
for.
else for. Is there a better form of words then? The individual who does the secretariat work on behalf of that organisation should estimate how much this time would cost based on how much time they spend working for the group.
You can see.
Can we take the and the hourly rate out? Just take that. Just
Yes.
finish it group.
Just the time they spend working for the group, and it's up to them how they work out whether it's on their hourly rate or a charge that they would make, or yeah, would that?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that makes sense. Thank you. And does that help, Colin?
I'll tell you when I have a look at it.
And then actually we've got an example of the completed form as Annex A, so we'll just page 5, any comments on that? Because this annex is going to go into the guidance, is that right?
It will.
Yeah. Page 6. And page 7. I have one on page 7. Where we've got deputy convener, and we've written in MSP individual. My worry is if you put MSP in there in the example, it implies that you have to have an MSP as a deputy convener.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
You do have to have 2 MSP office bearers, which is why it was
Just put
put in there to show them that, or to
Right.
show people that 2 MSP office bearers are required.
Just leave it there then. I'm being too picky, haven't I? Ignore me. And then page.
Change that other bit then, sorry, Fiona.
Yep. Take me to.
Just an example in the last box there.
Yep.
Secretariat on behalf of an organisation
yes.
is estimated at 20 hours at a cost.
Yeah. You're right. Given the previous change we've made, an individual provided secretary support on behalf of the organisation, which they calculated at, instead of putting in this is estimated at, which they calculated the cost to the organisation to be. Would that work?
So that seems fine.
And that follows in with the change we made earlier.
I'm slightly lost. The observation you made on page 7. I was agreeing with you because the way things are phrased on page 3, under group office bearers, near the bottom, the presumption arising from that paragraph is not that the deputy convener need be an MSP, it could be the secretary or the treasurer.
So could we write, see on the page 7, the example form, could it be MSP/individual? And that could be at each.
That would cover it, yeah.
Yeah. So if we put MSP/individual under deputy convener secretary, would that cover?
Yes, I think that would meet the point you made.
Okay. And page 8. Okay. So, when those changes are made, do members agree that this should become the draft guidance that we're going to publish once those changes are made to the form?
Well, I'm minded to agree it, but I'd be interested just to discuss whether or not we publish it.
I was just coming to that. The next question, Jackson, was, do members agree that the draft guidance should be published in volume 3 of the Code of Conduct? This isn't standing orders, it's guidance in the Code of Conduct.
I was just about to ask a question in the last one. On page 8, where it says each member will be charged £5 a year to cover the costs of catering. At this minute in time, the cost of the catering, which is only some coffee, basically every meeting is covered by the airports. I mean, this is guidance.
This part, the form, is just an example of how to fill in the form. So for an organisation like you, that would be covered in the section about the support that's given.
Yes, sorry, I'd completely forgotten that you were putting this out as an example. I do apologise.
This bit is just the example, but you're right. I think we have to get the example right in order for the guidance to be followed. So can I then take us to that? Do we agree that the draft guidance should be published in volume 3 of the Code of Conduct? Jackson?
Is there draft guidance just now that this is amending?
I'm just going to check because I don't think there is. No, there isn't. That's why we're doing this.
And what alternatives are there to publishing? I mean, would it be in order for the draft guidance to be something that is made available to every convener, for example, of the group? I say this only because I have been involved in a couple of CPGs where there has been a degree of mischief entered into by seeking to create difficulties within the group arising from interpretations of guidance. And so I'm intrigued to know whether there is an option open to us, which is for this to be guidance which is made available to conveners who therefore understand the responsibilities attaching to the group, as opposed to it being something which is available more widely simply to create or potentially to create difficulties that otherwise need not be there. So I'd just like to know.
Yep. I'll just clarify and then we can continue discussion. It's up to us as the committee whether we publish this guidance or not. But whether we publish it or not, it's our intention to send it to every convener and the secretariat of every cross-party group, so that the guidance is actually getting directly to the people that need it. But it's our decision as a committee whether we actually publish it or not. Are there any other comments following Jackson's thoughts?
I would tend to agree with Jackson in that way. If it's, you know, to be published in the standards as just a set of guidelines, suggestions as to how best practice would be, is that really the place for that type of thing? Would be my view. I can see where Jackson's coming from. If it is guidance that's to be filled in by the Secretariat, then the Secretariat can surely clear it with the officers before submitting.
Right. If I can just correct you on one thing, this is going to be published as guidance in the Code of Conduct and not in the standards.
Oh, sorry, Code of Conduct.
Which
yeah.
is a slightly less...
Yeah, I do appreciate, but at the same, I wouldn't be jumping up and down if it was or wasn't. You know, I'm just sort of suggesting it's something that I don't think needs to be there.
Right. Okay, Jackson.
I might, Convener, suggest that we implement the guidance for a 12-month period, and then perhaps write to the conveners of the cross-party groups to establish if they found it helpful, and B, to say if they would have any objection to it being incorporated in the Code of Conduct at that stage. And that might be, because it's possible there may be some way in which it needs to subsequently be amended, and rather than sort of having published it and done all that, it could be regarded as being advice that we were giving conveners in the first instance, and we'll revisit it after 12 months and they can tell us if they found it helpful. And if so, and they don't see any difficulties that arose from it, then to publish it as in the Code of Conduct at that point.
Okay, are there any thoughts on Jackson's suggestion?
I mean, there is a form already that you've got to complete a form just now, don't we?
This is the form.
Groups, yeah.
What we're doing is the guidance on how to complete the form, because we weren't getting consistency in the completion of the application. Not application, report, annual report.
Right, okay. So we're going for a one-year trial period. Well, I don't have a problem with just going with it.
And that's Colin and Margaret. George, would you,
No, I'm quite happy
with that pilot as well? That does seem to be quite a useful compromise. And not even, it's not, compromise is the wrong word, this is about ensuring consistency for people completing the form, so that when the public look at the form, they can read across all the different cross-party groups. So it would seem sensible for us to go for Jackson's suggestion of we pilot this. We're sending it out to cross-party group conveners, we're sending it out to the Secretariat, and of course our clerks themselves will be part of that pilot at the end of the year as to how consistently we got information back. So our agreement is that we won't publish in Volume 3 of the Code of Conduct, but we will send to the conveners of all cross-party groups and the Secretariat of the cross-party groups, and we will monitor this next year. Thank you very much. That ends the public part of the meeting, and we will move into private session, and I allow the press and public to leave. Thank you.